But they were tracking me the whole time. They knew I was going to Bali. They knew where I kept getting pulled out of the airport in Colombia, Medellin. Everywhere I went, they pulled me out. And every time they take my bags in the back. And I didn't know this, but they were filming everything, photographing and sending it to the FBI, showing me exactly what I had, where I was going. And they could have arrested me anytime. And right at that moment, I stood up. It was like God preparing me, dude, for the onslaught. And I walked with my mom. I was going right up to her car. And right when I was walking up to the car, this black Suburban, just like several. He cracked the door open with a pistol, and he's pointing the gun at me, his finger on the trigger, and all I can do is like push my mom to the side and get in front of her and just raise my hands real slow.
What is going on, everybody? We are back with part 2 with Jimmy Watson. If you missed part 1, be sure to check it out. We go through Jimmy's entire career with a notorious private military group known as Blackwater. In part 2 today, we're going to go through Jimmy's career with the Navy SEALs. We deep dive into his time working with John McAfee, both as his head of security and a chief executive officer of one of their crypto funds. And then finally, we dive into his time working as a mercenary while he was on the run from the FBI after they did close in and arrested John McAfee. This episode is absolutely crazy, and once again, Jimmy has lived a hell of a life. So if you guys are interested in supporting him, make sure to check out the links below. And if you do enjoy this episode, do me a huge favor to make sure to subscribe or leave a 5-star review if you're on a listening platform. With that, let's get into part 2 with Jimmy Watson. In terms of that situation, I guess, like deep dive in that, was it like, what was, I guess the mental toll that was taken, kind of seeing because we just talked about, how it became so politicized, but in terms of, seeing it have that effect on your team members and, all those guys that you've done so many missions with and everything too.
Yeah. Well, there's team leaders that have like had guys die in their platoon. And I never had a guy die. I had some guys get injured and stuff, but having guys go to prison for life until Trump pardoned them.
And they're getting steamrolled too.
Yeah. Based on your decision to go out, even though you made the right choice and you wouldn't necessarily take back that choice, you still live under this terrible survivor's guilt, all these like emotions, for years while these guys were serving prison. Like I'm in the SEAL teams now, and that's probably why I was so freaking wild in the teams. My nickname was Texas Tornado.
Mm-hmm.
My knuckles were broken, and I don't say that in a good way. I was so mad at life, and mad at my little brother dying, and then my buddies dying and stuff. And then on top of that, every time I would start to smile or laugh at a joke or something, I would think, "Don't you dare fucking smile. There's guys in prison right now because of a decision you made to go out there." And I would try to tell a psychiatrist that, myself that, or my dad or somebody close to me. And they'd always remind me, Jimmy, it wasn't the decision. It was the Department of Justice vehemently.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, they were on one mission in one order from the president himself, from Biden, from Obama. You will put these guys away for life. That's why they so vehemently redid case after case. Mistrial, another case, bringing down 100+ God only knows Iraqi witnesses, sending the FBI to Iraq, and they couldn't even come out of their rooms because they're getting bombed. Think of the hypocrisy in weird illustration there. You're there to investigate that nothing happened, but you can't even come out of your rooms because something is happening violent around you all the time. It's freaking war. And so I'm living with all these emotions, right? And these guys in prison until Trump pardoned them by the grace of God, But they made my life hell. FBI made my life hell. And these guys probably would have stood a chance of getting off if it wasn't for other teammates like Jeremy Ridgway turning state's evidence. He completely turned and said these guys murdered everybody. And of course he gets off, he gets, hominis dominus, and these guys go to prison. Extremely sad situation. But yeah, I live with that. And there was a couple times I wanted to kill myself. And I thought about, okay, do I do it I had to rent a house. It was empty, and I would stay over there and just sleep on the ground during this time. And I would often think on Christmas, on holidays and stuff, I would think, okay, do I go in the shower and blast myself? And man, I was just so close all the time to just ending my life until I really had to get myself together. But man, it was demonic. There was spiritual attacks. It was dark, dark, dark time for me, my life for years, and it led into the SEALs.
Let me ask with this at this time too, as we kind of highlighted, what was your relationship then with God in terms of?
I didn't know if I was in purgatory, like your mind starts playing tricks on you after you've been through all that, and then you're home. And so I thought it's possible that I died over there. And I was always trying to remember at what point did I die in Iraq? On the streets, maybe? Did I die? And now I'm just kind of in purgatory, a place between heaven and hell, and I'm going to hell. I thought that often because this is extremely traumatic.
Yeah.
Unbelievably traumatic. Everything. Because not only are you dealing with the war, what you saw, but you're dealing with the corruption of the DOJ and all
Betrayal of the people that you're fighting for.
Complete betrayal, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, complete betrayal. And so I'm having all these thoughts of suicide, and I'm having a very, very difficult time functioning. Like I said, alcohol and all this stuff. But I had to find a new mission in life. And so that's when I went all out for the SEALs. And that's one thing that helped me get through the tremendously hard training that everybody knows about by now. Was that fueled me. It's because I had nothing else to go home to.
It is an amazing thing. A lot, you've heard of people like Joe Rogan have said this time and time again. He's done 2,000 fucking interviews, and people I've talked to and everything. It's like, it's amazing how much excellence and drive and, fermenity and, the creation of a really unique, powerful, strong human can come from some of those darkest, hardest times,
It has to happen.
Yeah.
It's trials and tribulations have to happen. And no one ever remembers the good times. I don't look back and say, man, it was so fun making millions of dollars with McAfee or this. I look back at my time on house arrest. I look back at those deep, dark moments at James Haley Veterans Hospital with those other wounded guys. I look back at those times as the best, because those times, the most painful times, where your princess after 7 years is walking out on you, took everything, just walked out and left you in your dream home. I look at those times, crying on the carpet, face down on the ground, just boohooing, like this grown ass man, just boohooing, man, because you lost everything. And life just compounds. It's compounding interest on your life of pain. And it's a daily fight and struggle to just live. And one of the most hardest things in life is wanting to live so bad, but you're fighting off death every day in your own life.
Mm-hmm.
And until you go through that, it's hard to relate. And so I had to go through years of that. And so I just deep dove the mission of the SEALs. I lived it. I breathed it. I dove so deep down into that to live that, in order to change my whole name, persona, everything about me, my identity, just to deep dive in that and escape perhaps reality of what had happened to me, what had happened to those guys.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask, if you had an opportunity to go with the individual you are now and have a conversation with that one that's going through that period before you got to the SEALs, after Blackwater, and that, really, as we're talking about peaks and valleys, a really deep valley there, what would be something that you would want to say if you had that opportunity?
I would go to that deeply depressed and dark human being, Jimmy Watson, and I would say, dude, whatever you do, it's going to get brighter. You've got to continue to believe that there's a higher power that's walking with you right now, that's recording everything, that's watching you every step. Try not to make bad decisions. Don't kill yourself. Continue on, keep moving forward, because there is a brighter day. And now, living the life that I have now in Miami, Florida, with beautiful wife and baby, new baby, and all this stuff, and all my stuff, I look back and I shudder and cringe because I was this close. I was 3 pounds of a 4-pound sugar pull away from ending it all, literally. And I look back and I hear of guys that kill themselves all the time. Buddies that I knew in Blackwater, friends in the SEAL teams, and in your life, and I hear about these tragic things. Oh man, did you hear about this guy? And you're going, man. And I used to be mourn over it and get really sad. Now I don't. I just, it's too bad, brother, and I move on. But understanding how close I was and realizing that there's so much regret in that decision because you just don't realize how close you are to an entirely different, beautiful, absolutely beautiful life. And that is really hard to understand when you're going through it. It's really hard to process because you've been going through the pain for so long. You think, okay, great. Here's another guy, Jimmy Watson, who somehow made it to the other side, the bright side. God saved him, but he's not going to save me. I've already cried out. I've already tried it all. I've already done the altar calls. Look, I baptized myself in a Medellin, Colombia bathtub after a 3-day coke binge. Baptized myself. I was so desperate to find God. And I didn't find him. He had to find me, but it had to be at the right time and the right place. And just because you think that you're ready and at your lowest, no. There's several layers lower that you can go, that you have to go to sometimes. Mm-hmm. I pray that other people don't have to go there, but I had to.
I think the most, when we had T-Cab on, and I brought this up, and he was like, I can't believe you fucking remembered that. Because he mentioned it passingly on a podcast, but the homeless guy came up to him, and when it was raining, and he's like, you know what rain means? Change.
Love that.
It's phenomenal. And I always say this too. It's like, today is a good example. In Dallas, it doesn't rain much. But whenever there's an opportunity with that now, I always sit back and you got to think, because I think so much in life, you almost let life take control of you. You don't take control of life. And if you don't have that opportunity to sit there, think and be thankful and, think of all the reasonings and stuff, it's like that's when stuff gets overwhelming. And I think exactly what you're saying there is phenomenal. It's like, it's just one step forward at a time. And eventually you take that leap to the, where everything comes together and you reach where you want to reach.
And there's a point in your life where you have to take all the guilt, all the shame, the vicious cycle of shame and guilt. You have to take the ex-girl that walked out on you, that took all your stuff. You have to take the bankruptcy. You have to take the prison time. You have to take the trauma as in childhood. You have to take everything that's bad that's happened to you, everything that you've done bad to other people. I am by no means clean of anything. Like I'm an open book, man. And if there's something bad to be said about me, I'm always like, hey, bro, but you forgot something else. You left out the terrible part of the story. What you're telling me, if you think that I've done something bad, I've done way 10 times worse than what you're saying. There's layers, right? Mm-hmm. Probably wouldn't want to talk to me afterwards. But knowing all that, I've had to visualization. I've had to take it all and get on my knees and sobbing. And I've had to literally lift it to God, like picture myself giving it to God, giving him the death of my little brother, taking my little brother and offering it up to him, and offering it up to, and offering my, the guilt and shame and war and all these things up to him in a package and saying, you can have it all, man. I can't carry the burden anymore. No man can carry this. So when somebody hates on me online and stuff, I'm like, man, I'm glad it must feel great to be so perfect like you, Mm-hmm. I'm glad you haven't gone through what I have, because you probably wouldn't be living right now, brother, And so, you have to give it all to God, and eventually, and it may not be as easy as what I just said. It may take a long time. It's a daily battle sometimes, but you have to eventually turn it all over, or it'll eat you alive.
I think that's a beautiful, it's amazing hearing that too, because, you know, especially the way you say that and frame that. I mean, we see it today too. People hold on to burden, and it's this weird thing too, where like religion's gotten so I don't know, there's weird distortion that's happened for certain people. You know what I mean? And I think like you highlighted it really well, where you're like, you know, I'm not the guy that's going to church every day and doing this and that. It's like,
Yeah.
But that's not when it was originally utilized, and what it benefits people so much is that it creates that connection, you know, and there's a plethora of different versions of religion and connection, whatever it is. But the end all be all is that connection with God, the higher power, to be able to, again, look into yourself and have that moment of relief, have that moment of conversation. And it's like, and it's weird to see, like, you know, this is what I always say with religion. It's incredible to see so many people want to step away from it because they look at all the extra stuff, but they forget about the actual power that kind of comes with it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's not about you leaving your house on Sunday and going to church. Forget all that. It is about you, wherever you are right now, going to your knees and or proverbially going to your knees, standing there, whatever, and getting real with yourself, getting real, you know, not taking the pill right then, getting real, not throwing away your heroin, I'm telling you, you have got to have a real eye-opening experience with Jesus, with God, you know, before anything really truly happens in your life. Because I've had it all. I've literally had, you know, 25 grand a day coming in like it's nothing, like a river. Like I've had it all. Women, drugs. I've done all the sexy stuff. I've done the mercenary stuff.
Yeah, I was just saying, you've seen it all too.
I've done the mercenary shit. I've done the real cool. Like I'm not talking about Blackwater stuff, real mercenary stuff. I've done it. I've done it all. Like in my realm, you know, I failed pre-med school, so I ain't done it all. But I've done in my world. I've done it, and so it's hard to impress me because I know real. I've been around men my whole life in the locker rooms. Like I know you're just. Sometimes we're just children, grown-up children, and you're not that badass. You can easily get killed in a split of a second. Somebody's always better than you. And somebody's always got a cooler story. But if I can take all those chapters of destruction, yeah, I'm going to use them. That's why it's so important to come on here and be vulnerable, tell the X-rated version, and say, yo, dude, I'm not coming on here to be a badass. I'm coming on here to tell you, if anything, what not to do. But then the end of the story is total redemption. It's about a relationship with God. And I actually experienced a no joke, as real as it gets, experience with God on house arrest, phase of 15.
Yeah, we're going to deep dive that too. I'm going to set you up with Kevin Donaldson off the podcast. We'll talk this through. I think you two connect really well, and it's incredible how you guys' stories align well. I think it'd be.
Oh, that's cool. I don't know him, but
we'll set that up. But let's jump into the process then, back into, you know, your opportunity to become a SEAL. That's where, you know, you were able to interact with TCAB and everything as well, who we mentioned a few times. But yeah, I mean, what was your experience going through selection process there once you got in?
So, you know, obviously everybody's heard every single SEAL story or Bud's thing there is. I do have some funny ones and stuff. But obviously it was tremendously challenging. The cold water was like nothing you just can't explain how cold a person can get. I think a lot of people think, oh, I can stand cold water. Like I can go do a little ice bath every morning at 4 a.m. No. Do an ice bath for 6, 7 years, 8 years straight. Like, and I'm kind of exaggerating, right? But at the end of the day, you're so cold that you don't know you're cold anymore. You're just your hip flexors inside and your bones hurt. Your bones hurt because you're always like, and so it's the constant torture. So I always say anybody that goes to Bud's could be a SEAL theoretically, because they can take the beating for a week, maybe 2 weeks. But it's when you start to realize that this is going to be your life in the SEAL teams. This is not just like I've heard some SF guys or whatever say, oh, it's only 2 years. It's like, no. That's to get you to the front door of pain. That is to get you through to the front door of the pain train. And it does get worse in the teams, especially if you go somewhere like I did with STV with the little black subs. You know, it's just another level of pain and misery. And like an ultra marathon in cold water, you know. So there's levels to this game. There's levels to pain, and that's kind of what I learned. Like I thought I had been through a lot in the Marines. Then you get to Blackwater and you do 4 years of war. Like that's a lot of combat time. And then there's another level. You know, you go to the SEALs, and then you go through that pipeline, and you're just aching all the time. And I don't care what anybody says. Everybody thinks about quitting. Nobody breathes through. It's a very painful, long, traumatic. I don't trust anyone that says that. In fact, I've had buddies that were like, I'd do SEAL training again, dude. Easy, dude. It's like, bro, the hell did you just say? I'm a realist, man. I remember stuff.
Yeah.
I got a photographic memory of pain. That's it. Nothing else. Not a good memory, but pain. And I'm like, yo, bro, hold on. I saw you crying under a log for 3 hours like this. Because I was too, you know? And so... And you barely made it. You know, I barely, you know, you're always on the cusp. And so that's one thing. One thing that I learned from SEAL training is that if you let up just a little bit in life, you're not going to make progress that day. Mm-hmm. And in SEALs, that equated to if you let up just a little bit, let's say you you do well that day and you blasted through the time swim, and you're doing okay and you're passing stuff, man, you're about to get just trucked. You are about to get steamrolled and get kicked out, because it was that moment. They've designed that program so well that right when you think that you're doing like really well, that's when you get just checked and you see like one of your best guys get dropped, and you're like, "Ooh, that's scary." Yeah. Like if he got dropped, I can easily get dropped, and because they're always presenting new, hard, challenging tests, and you've got to do it under duress, under cold, under the frigid water. Your heart's beating 1,000,000 miles an hour. So. One thing I learned that is that you could not let up 1 second, or you were going to get rolled, dropped, or otherwise. You're going to just drop on yourself. So got through that training, and standing on the shoulders of giants, going through that.
How bad of an idea? Part of the idea I was thinking when if I get you and TCAV out here at the same time, I was going to do a fun video of you two, of me trying to do like some day of SEAL training where you two just run me through some shit.
Bro, I would love to beat your ass, dude. It's like a fantasy of mine to just put people through pain. Like, I'm not going to do one of those cringe boot camps though. Like, get on your knees. You know, like, no, you know what I mean? Like, but I did love doing that. I love beating the new guys, but I always put myself through the pain too. Yeah. I don't trust anyone who stands there and yells at you and beats you. No, do it with them. If you're that hardcore at 40, 50 years old, do it with them, homie. Yeah. That's my game.
It's the weirdest thing when you see someone that's a trainer or like anything like that, and they don't look like they train. And you're like, how are you, like, you see it in the gym and shit, dude. Yeah.
I keep it right. I'm 43 and I keep it right and tight. Now, I am not the physical, the stud specimen that I was at 27, 30 years old. You know, because I had a VO2 max. I was blasting out, dude. Run, swim, run, 4 a.m., like crazy stuff in the SEALs, but I keep in. I try to do my 100 man makers a day. I blast myself.
All right, we might have to set something up for that.
Yeah,
I'll see how good. Probably won't go well.
You better get on some TRT and peptides, bro, before I come to your house. Me and TCAT, that'd be funny, bro.
Yeah, I think it'd be a fun video. I think it'd be kick ass for me, but I love doing that type of shit. So we'll make it happen. Yeah. You got any funny stories that stood out from buds as well?
I mean, I got my penis caught in a bell sander. That was crazy. That was in the SEALs though. That was not in buds. Yeah.
Didn't expect that. How did that happen? We'll skip ahead here.
Well, Matt Leathers was like one of the hardest dudes I know, and he passed away. Very mysterious conditions in STV. He just disappeared in the water column, right? And during that time, during the massive search for him in Hawaii, there as part of the little subs, I decided I was going to make him a memorial board. When you don't have a coffin for a guy to slam the trident in, you make like some kind of memorial. And I could paint, and I painted his face. I did a really awesome art picture of him in the cold with snow on his wet suit, like about to get in his dry suit, about to get in the STV. and I made this memorial board. Well, part of that was sanding it down with this big belt sander.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'm famous for this, dude, this story. So I'm belt sanding like this back and forth outside, and it's on an extension cord, and I'm out in Hawaii. I got the little silkies on.
Yeah.
And was it silkies? Yeah, I had the little Ranger panties on, bro, in Hawaii, shirt off, sun's out, guns out, with the belt sander, and I'm going back and forth like this. It's 80 grit, okay, for all you nerds out there that want to get really into this, like 80 grit sandpaper. And I'm going back and forth, and I'm chewing off all this stuff off this real rough board, okay? I'm grinding it down. And I don't know what happened. It's like I glanced up at the clock or something. Although I don't know. I just remember glancing up barely. And then all of a sudden, the belt sander grabbed my green silkies and then grabbed my penis and went up into the belt sander and out the side. Kind of like this, inside.
Yeah.
And have you ever seen a mouse go under a door crack or a Laffy Taffy? That's exactly what happened. Like it flattened it out and it was stuck in the belt sander. And true story, I got a shirt for it, all that stuff for my SEAL team. And I've only said this one time before on a podcast. It did real well because of this, because we opened up with the penis in the belt sander. So it was crazy. And I think the craziest part of the story is it's stuck in this belt sander and it's like frying my penis because it's so hot. Yeah. Like it's so hot. Like it's because I've been going like this for an hour and it's just burning. And so it's like, you ever put one of those sandwiches in the waffle thing?
Yeah,
just
the press that, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just stuck in this press. It's frying it like shh. And I'm like, and I'm standing there, and I don't go to my knees or anything because I'm so self-conscious of what people will think of me, Like, how am I going to look here? In the SEALs, it's like always be cool.
Yeah, that's going to be your nickname.
Yeah, the number one real rule in the SEAL teams is always look cool.
Yeah.
So if you got your penis in a belt sander, you better freaking look cool no matter what. So I look around like this, and I look over, and there's this man and this woman, these two kids, my neighbors, and they're unloading the groceries out of the back of their like Jeep Grand Cherokee in the house. And I'm like in shock because I'm afraid these kids are going to see me and have to go through psychotherapy for the rest of their lives, trauma, right? And so I look, and they just keep unloading the groceries. They never see this happen. And so I'm just standing there with my penis in this belt sander, all chewed up, and the shorts are all just jacked in there. And I'm like, okay. And so I turn to him like this, I turn like this, like try to hide it. Mm-hmm. And I crawl into my garage. And then the next thing I think of is I have to shut the garage door. I don't want anybody to see me bleed out and die like this, because I feel like I'm going to die here. And so I hold it because the weight of it is clamped down on my penis. So it's really terrible to look. Yeah. And so I shut the garage door like this with one hand, and most people can't do that, but I do it with one hand. Mm-hmm. And I go over and I look at it. I look at it, and I'm like, all right, calm down. Like, I've been through a lot in my life. I have to calm down and breathe through. Okay. And I'm like, I look at this belt sander. And if you've ever seen, I saw this Oprah Winfrey once with this guy where he got a tree that fell on his legs, and he cut both of his legs off because the chainsaw ran out of gas, and he cut both of his. They had the pocket knife on Oprah Winfrey. It was this little pocket knife like this, all dull, and he cut both of his legs off with this pocket knife. And I always wondered, how in the hell could you do that? Well, a fox will chew his arm off if it's in a bear trap. And my penis was in a bear trap, basically. Mm-hmm. And so you wouldn't imagine what you're willing to do to get something off of you that's clamped down on you, especially your penis. And so it's clamped down on me. And so I'm willing to rip my thing off, just to get it off. So I pull the belt sander real hard, and it's unbelievably stretchy. Like, I don't know how, but it just stretched like this, like stretched, like probably like, like this, Yeah. It stretched like this. And that's like the majority of my penis length, And so it stretches like this. And I realize it's not going anywhere, unless I just rip it off. Mm-hmm. And so I really had to look at this situation. And long story short, I go to get a screwdriver to start to just
like
undo the whole thing. But then right as I'm going to get the screwdriver, it dawns on me just to release the clamp. There's a clamp. And when you release it, it loosens up the belt center just enough to get the belt center off, the center thing off. And when I did that, I was able to just pull inch by inch by inch by inch of it out. All right, maybe not inches, but it was enough to release it. I release it. I go inside. Long story short, I release it. I go inside, and I'm trying to get my dog to go get my wife. It's terrible, like Lassie. And I go and tell my ex at the time, she's making cupcakes or something. And I'm like, baby, I just got my penis caught in a bell center. I need to go to the hospital. She's like, oh my God, I'll go get ice. And I'm like, halt the patrol. I said, this is far beyond ice. Get me to the hospital now. Like I'm dying. And she later said it looked like a black burnt pancake. Anyways, major urethroplasty surgery later. They have to fillet it like a fish. They have to route out the urethra and get skin grafts and stuff. And it was a major, major surgery, but everything was okay.
That is crazy. Yeah. I did not expect that would go in there. Well, double congrats with the kid then too. It's good.
Yeah, exactly. Right. How in the world?
Yeah. So then jumping into the SEALs, man. So you're doing part of the SVD team.
STV, yeah.
What was the day-to-day looking like, and like what were some of the operations that you guys are doing with that and everything?
Can't really go into the operational side of it or what it can do and the capabilities, but it's a very, very, very secretive command, and they do some incredible stuff, some really, really out there stuff, and that you just would be like, wow. Maybe not the sexiest missions, but it's powerful and it's no joke. But you do a regular workup like a SEAL team. So you're doing everything a regular vanilla team is, like all the workups, the shooting, the jumping, the diving, of course, all that stuff. But you're doing an extra dose, like on steroids of diving, 26 weeks a night, 4 hours a night of Draeger, LAR-5, and then you do Motto 1. And mixed gas and stuff, heliox and stuff. And so it gets very, very technical, very serious, and a lot of SDV in the back of the SDV, and you're doing that. So it's arduous.
Do you enjoy diving, or like is that something? No,
zero.
Why would you say?
Zero. People ask me to go diving, recreational diving now. I was like, nah, bro, I'm good.
Why? Just
like, what? I thought SEALs love the water. It's like, you have no idea what you're talking about. If a guy ever says he's a SEAL and he likes the water, I would call Don Shipley immediately.
Mm-hmm. So I guess during this time, you kind of highlighted the outside. I guess it's a good time to bring in kind of the idea of wearing that mask, and you're operating and you're doing a lot of this, working with this team, which is obviously doing some really high end, top of the level shit. But on, meanwhile, when you're going to bars and stuff, you're saying that, you're kind of having some rough interactions. So I guess what was that balance that you were dealing with at that time?
Yeah, well, you're doing pretty stressful stuff. You're with the SEAL team, so you think you're amazing, all this stuff. You start, it's important to live and breathe that. It's kind of like an arrogant doctor. You don't like his personality. He's arrogant, but you want him to work on you because he obviously knows what he's doing. You ran into those guys. And so you kind of do build a very confidence, and they want you to be super confident. You're not like in the regular army or something where you're getting orders and all this stuff. You're kind of, you're working as a cohesive unit, and you're really going on the fly, and you're doing all these training ops. And then every time you get a chance to party, if you're not partying with the guys and drinking beer, you're kind of on the fringes. You're not the cool. You're not trustworthy. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it's gotten a little better now. It was kind of getting better when I got out. But man, if you weren't partying with the guys, you're just an outcast. And so I took that to the next level. You know what I mean? I was partying hard, so I was training hard, doing a great job of what I was doing, but I was definitely partying hard and going all out, man. And then when my little brother died, things just started going really dark for me. I had to had a lot of regrets with my little brother and stuff, and so he passed away, and that's when I started just kind of getting real loose in the SEALs. and getting in fights and just off the cusp, man, for no reason, and just being too wild. Wasn't looking for fights, but that's always just kind of like a byproduct of you drinking all day and all night and doing crazy stuff.
It was this type of thing where it's like you're kind of, it's just using those like outside.
Yeah, and you're kind of trying to impress your swim buddies too. You're kind of trying to be like hardcore, It's probably like being in a biker gang. You probably are just always trying to not one up guys, but you're always trying to prove your craziness, how wild you are, how and I think that's the deep psychology of it, in my own monkey articulation here, but basically that's what's really going on. If I was to try to pinpoint it, I wouldn't have admitted that back then, but now I do, now I'm like, dude, I was seeking validation. I was trying to be cooler than I was. I was trying to be hardcore. I was trying to live on the fringes and still operate and still pass a drug test and still, try to live within the confines. But at the end of the day, man, it's validation seeking. It's living behind a big mask. If that's all and you've been in the teams or special forces or stuff, unfortunately, you're gonna get out. And if you get angry at me saying this, then you're living behind a mask. But you're living behind a mask, and until you're able to come out from underneath that mask, you're going to appear cool to others and like you've got it all together. But really, you're just living a facade in a life that you were living in the teams because you know that everybody's watching you and you've got to live that. But for me, I understand now, kind of living outside the matrix, that you've got to be you, and you is not going to be them or their perception of who you should be.
Is it, at this time, is it common for some of the guys around you? Like, is it really not a thing for if you're kind of acting out per se, but you know what I mean? Like, do any of the guys ever kind of reach out and be like, hey man, like we want to slow down here? Is it kind of like every guy's moving fast that it's really no one has the time to like sit down and kind of have that type of conversation
in the teams?
Yeah.
If you're moving too fast, if you're getting too wild, you're definitely going to have a come to meet with Jesus. I fortunately, I don't know how, but I was able to stay below that radar. I never was taken to the side and say, what the hell, Jimmy? I was for some of the guys when I was a team leader under me, but honestly, man, I never had that conversation because I was real conscious of it. And I was one of those guys, I could party all night up until daybreak and early in the morning and then come in pretty locked on. May smell a little like suspicious.
Shit done.
But I mean, I've seen guys go on jumps in Arizona early in the morning drunk, just blasted, It happens a lot. But it is what it is,
So when did you decide that you were going to step away from the SEAL team?
Well, I got called in my office at a certain point. I was doing real well. I was about to take a trip to Thailand. I was a team leader, went through NSW sniper, all this cool stuff. And I did a national tasking and with STV, and I got called in the office one day and they said, Jimmy, you have 10 days to get out of the Navy. And this is my commander who has like first name basis with at barbecues and stuff. Oh, I'm like, what you mean, man? I thought I was going to get an award up here. like what? I'm not getting SEAL of the year or something, arrogant. And I was cocky, man. But I was cool. And I said, what do you mean, sir? I said, like, this is Jimmy here. What do you mean? like, he's like, you got 10 days to get out of the Navy. And I said, why? And he said, well, the FBI sent a memo saying that you lied on the stand and, you're lying to cover up for those guys, the Blackwater guys and all this stuff. And you have 10 days to get out of the Navy. This is a direct order all the way from the top, Admiral Losi and this other guys, even the Secretary of Navy. And I was like, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was such a shock, And I knew the FBI was mad at me for testifying in the Blackwater case. I knew that they were going to come after me because they told me if I testify like that again against them, against the FBI's story, if my story didn't collaborate with the FBI was saying to burn those Blackwater guys, if I didn't burn the Blackwater guys in my testimony, they were going to come after me. And so I went in there and they came after me hardcore, like they said they would. At least they were men of their word, And so they sent that memo, and they gave me 10 days to get out of the Navy. And man, I'll never forget, I looked at my commander, and I just said, I'm not going nowhere. Are you fucking kidding me? It goes back to Dan Daly and Smelly Butler charging a machine gun nest. And in fact, my commander looked at me and said, you're leaving this place. This was my friend, and now he's turned on me completely like, what? Like, what's going on? Like some political thing, right? And later I found out why. Because he was up for promotion, but he was getting out. And that's the way he got his promotion through the admiral. Classic. They wanted me out. It was huge political. And I said, I'm not going nowhere. And he said, Jimmy, you're charging a machine gun nest. And he was playing off of my time in the Marines. But what he didn't realize was in the Marines, charging a machine gun nest is a freaking honor. Death is an honor. Charging a machine gun nest, yeah, I'm going to die. But my buddy behind me is going to pick up the weapon and kill you. You feel me?
Yep.
And so I said, well, that was a mistake because, if it wasn't for Marines charging machine gun nests, I told him this. If it wasn't for them charging machine gun nests, me and you wouldn't be sitting here talking. And he said, well, you're out of here. I swear on my life, in 10 days, you're out of here. Well, in 10 days, I filed all these complaints. I did crazy stuff, man. I was writing congressmen, writing this guy, I just broadsided Canada, the Navy, bro. I said, okay, they're going to try to kick me out. And after 10 days, I was still there at the command. I walked by my commander. I slapped him on the back, which is something you don't do. You don't put your hands on a commander. And I said, hey, I'm still here. I'm still here. And he said, I see that. But not for long. I said, I thought you said 10 days. I'm getting in arguments and stuff at the command. It started unraveling big time. But I stayed in. And to the point of absurdity, I fought the Navy for a year doing complaints. And finally they offered me an honorable discharge to retire out of the SEALs, an honorable discharge with all the bells and whistles, all my medals, everything, college paid for, medical for my wife. And that was probably the hardest decision I've ever made in my life, was to turn down the honorable discharge retirement. Mm-hmm. I put the paper back in their face and I said, honorable is not on a piece of paper. I've seen SEALs with racks like a Russian general, and they were pieces of shit. Like, I'm sorry. I don't know how else to say it, but they were pieces of crap when it comes to being a SEAL. Dishonorable. Yeah, anything goes. Slimy, sticky weasels. But then I've seen guys that didn't have the medals, that were super honorable, did valorous things. So it's not on a piece of paper. Now, I retired honorably 2 years later after hell, but I turned down that because I said, honorable is not on a piece of paper. It's right here, what you did inside. That's first. Second thing, if I'm guilty of what you're saying I am guilty, then why are you offering me an honorable discharge? Why don't you come after me with all you got? And so they did. So they went after me with all that. They said, if you turn that down, you're an idiot. You're getting kicked out no matter what. Anyways, man, like one of my buddies said, I'm like a cockroach you can't kill. Like it's like, I'm going to keep coming back. I'm going to keep coming back. I'm going to charge the machine gun nest until I'm dead. You forgot. The main thing I was like confused about is my commander wearing the SEAL patch. Don't tread on me. All these guys are turncoats. All these guys are just yes men, trying to get their promotion, trying to get another vote in politics. And here they are saying to quit, for me to quit. Because they couldn't take my trident. It's easy to take somebody's trident, but not mine. They couldn't take it. They couldn't do it. Because they knew that wouldn't go, that wouldn't fly. Mm-hmm. And because I had nothing against me. And so I fought him for 2 years, hung myself in a mental hospital in my fight against the Navy, in a mental hospital to stay in. And eventually they released me. And then I chose to retire honorably. I made the decision because I was sick and tired of it, but stayed in, man. And it was not an easy road. And I don't know if I would do it again. I don't know if I would, because I lost everything, my family, because of it. I lost a lot. Nietzsche said, be careful when chasing monsters, for you will become one. Mm-hmm. For you may become one. And I simply became a monster chasing him. I was just a dark, nasty,
well, because it was like
guy.
A second betrayal again of people that you looked around.
It was betrayal after betrayal.
Yeah.
And it was like Groundhog Day. It was like never ending. It was like a Twilight Zone nightmare.
Yeah.
You know, you have a couple really good friends died in the SEALs. And then you have my little brother died. Then you got these guys in prison, all these compounding things. And eventually it broke me to the point of actually attempting suicide in a mental hospital. And then they saw how serious I was and that I wasn't going anywhere and that I did charge the machine gun nest. And there was absolutely nothing they could do or I was just going to broadside cannon him again. And so eventually they said, okay, Jimmy, you stay in, honorable, all this stuff. Just back off, bro. I said, you back off, homie. You know? And they're okay. And so that's kind of how it went. And it was right when Eddie Gallagher was getting slammed and a lot of SEALs. I thought I was when you're going through hard times in life, brother, a lot of times you think you're the only one. And a lot of times in my life, I thought I was the only one going through it. Like, why me? God, this is terrible, you know? But in the end, there's people all around you going through this everywhere, you know? And I later met up with other SEALs that took the honorable. And I don't blame them because they knew that the road ahead was futile. It was a brutal road of battling it out. And I later had everything turned back over. Another commander came in and said, no, Jimmy didn't do nothing wrong. He overturned the admin board. It was insane, man. That guy, Commander Parado, awesome guy. But anyways, God will give you justice, but you've got to stay true. Even if you're messing up around here and there, you got to stay true and walk it out.
Be willing to fight.
Yeah, and you've got to stay true to yourself. No matter what's offered to you, no matter what happens, you got to stay true to yourself.
So let's jump into your time with John McAfee. Could you maybe speak to like who he was and your relationship with him first? Because some may not, their only idea of him might be skewed by CNN, which not what we want.
Yeah. So John McAfee was the McAfee antivirus guy who created the software. He was an iconic figure, like the Mark Twain of this century. He was extremely brilliant, genius. He's been called evil. He's been called all kinds of different bad things. But the man that I knew was like a father figure to me. And how I met him was actually I just retired out, sitting in my house in Valley Center, and me and TCAV have done some wild, crazy stuff. We can't talk about it on the podcast, but we've done some weird, crazy stuff, and insane. Sometimes he'll remind me like, "Hey, bro, February 16th, we were up," and I'm like, "Hey, man, don't be texting me that stuff, man. Get out of here, TCAV. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to talk about it." And, yo, nah, what's up, dude? And always calling me, telling me stuff. And but anyways, TCAV, he calls me out of nowhere. He's like, "Yo, bro, what you doing, dog?" And I'm like, "Yo, T, what you need, dog? And what you need, man? Why you calling me?" You know? And he's like, "Yo, man, you want to go work for John McAfee?" And I was like, "Who's McAfee?" He goes, "Check your computer, dog." And I was like, "Oh, dang, McAfee, okay." And he knew McAfee. He didn't know McAfee, but McAfee reached out to his like long lost cousin in the SEAL team's nephew, Michael or somebody, and Michael told TCAV, and TCAV told me. And John McAfee wanted the best SEAL out there. You know, well, I wasn't the best SEAL by any means. I just got out. Timing's everything. So John McAfee calls me. And he's like, "You know who this is, boy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's John McAfee, right?" He's like, "How much you charge?" I said, $500 to $1,000 a day. He said, "That's ludicrous. I only charge my Green Berets $250. Or my Green Berets only charge me $250. I said, "Well, it's your life." And so I think John McAfee, that was the first negotiation he kind of lost. And I was kind of playing on
to say back.
Yeah, I said, "It's your life," but I would have done it for nothing, bro. I would have done it for nothing because I just wanted to venture again. And so anyways, ended up going there that night to Lexington, Tennessee. I thought I was going to go to the Caribbeans, but he was in Lexington, Tennessee. And I was like, "Dang, man, what's this guy doing out there, man?" And so I flew in, left my wife at home in California. I needed the money. I had to pay bills, you know. I had an offer from the cartel. Like, it was that bad. And I was like, "No, I can't do that. I can't sell my soul for the cartel. Like, are you kidding me?" And so I went off with John McAfee and ended up being the head of his security at first. And it was just a wild house, like a casino full of smoke. And I meet this like rogue guy, John McAfee. I don't know anything about him, but within a year and a half, I'm running his company. And I say CEO, I was a CEO of his company, but a CEO, what is a CEO? Well, a CEO in my book is somebody who's actually making tons of money, banking it in the treasury for the company of John McAfee. That's how I was at. And he announced it on Twitter on his big 1 million follower account.
Mm-hmm.
And but I didn't know I was running his company like as a CEO. He came in and said, "Hey, aren't you going to thank me for promoting you to CEO?" And I said, "Thank you." I said, "Thank you for what? You worked my ass off like a slave. I eat ramen noodles. The guards are downstairs eating crab legs and red lobster every day." I said, "I barely have a drink of water around here." He goes, "Well, damn it, you better thank me. I'm not giving you a bonus either." And I was like, "Okay, thanks, sir." And so that's how our relationship was, real brutal, back and forth. But we'd have a cigarette and coffee every morning. I'd debrief him of the day. He gave me a ton of responsibility. It was an unbelievable amount of growing experiences. In my life, I've had times of major growth and experience, like the Marines. Okay, I'm just a kid, drop out of high school. Then I have this big experience. I go to Blackwater, war. There's nothing like war to give you massive lessons of life. But then I'm lacking the intellectual ability. So, but I'm having to write reports. I'm having my girlfriend in Baghdad, Iraq, write all my reports for me, write up awards. Give this guy this. Give this guy a gold-plated AR-15. Yeah, give this guy two. He was heroic, And but then I have to learn things on my own. And McAfee was the intellectual sage type knowledge growing part in business. I had no idea about business, but now I had the war experience. I had the university degree, all this stuff, But when I went to McAfee, I needed to learn the real world application of business. And it was a fire hose of business and crypto and all this and real, world stuff, like never take equity, don't invest, like this, a lot of like my McAfee Black Book and stuff. And so he just started teaching me how to negotiate. The best negotiation is non-negotiable. Give them parameters that they have to agree to. There's no this go back and forth. It's kind of slimy. Like if I tell you, "I'm sorry, man, I can't do it anymore," and then I do it, I mean, how trustworthy am I after that?
And that
it's ridiculous.
You can pick that off next time too. Like, if they say they can't, they definitely still can.
I can only do this for 4 more hours, bro. Then I got to move on. It's like, well, you're a slime ball. I'm not going to deal with you again.
Yeah.
If you only have 4 hours out of this whole eternity that we've been together. Anyway, so he taught me a lot. I did his negotiations as his lead negotiator. Then I was his executive advisor. And then I was his right-hand man. And then I became like a son because he didn't have a son. And man, it was one wild ride after that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fun.
Why do you think, we were talking about this offline, why do you think the media chose to demonize McAfee so heavily?
Well, McAfee was a lot like Trump. He reminds me extremely a lot like Trump or who is it? Robert F. Kennedy?
Yeah, RFK.
Yeah. All these guys. He's all about decentralization, peer-to-peer. Why do I need this bank right here controlling my funds, charging me everything, taking? Why do I have to go to this bank right here and tell them what I'm going to do with this money? And somebody would say, a lot of interviewers would say, "Well, John McAfee, like, why do you care if the bank questions where you're sending your money and what it's for?" And John McAfee say, listen to yourself.
Yeah.
You're okay with the British coming in and sleeping with your wives, in the Revolutionary Warrior. You're okay. You've become so desensitized that you're like a freaking robot at the bank. They ask you, "Where are you sitting this 10,000? You have to tell them in detail where you're sitting. Do you know how absurd that is?
Mm-hmm.
They're asking you what you're doing with your money. Why do you care? And it shouldn't be any of your business. And that was John McAfee's plight. That was his whole argument, was decentralization, peer-to-peer. And that's what destroys the other companies. Uber destroyed taxi, peer-to-peer.
Yeah.
It's me and you. No longer are we going to go through some ridiculous, hyped up, unfair system. Where both of me and you have control over our money, and we do whatever we want. What is it to you? And they'd say, "Well, that's how the illegal trade of guns and drugs, And John would say, There's just as much as illegal drugs and gun trafficking going on with cash right now. Like, what's cash going to be? How's it going to be different with crypto? And crypto can be traced as well.
So when you were operating security firms, like when you first started out, what were some of the discussions around? I mean, obviously there's all this, whether you call it conspiracy, whether you're in a conversation around it, there was definitely individuals that, were against his philosophy and obviously definitely wanted to target him. So what were some of like the security assignments or discussions around that as well in terms of like what you guys were setting up for him?
Well, he first was concerned about the internal threat. He was always, remember, this guy is the guy that said that bugs were going to be in your computer in the 1970s and 80s, right? And he was right, viruses. So he's always concerned about internal threats in his own system. So in this particular case, it was his own guards he didn't trust. Whether or not that was true, I took everything John said at his word. Like I would just take everything he said at his word, and he had people come into his life that wanted to steal because they thought he was an old senile man, which was the absolute worst mistake you could make with John. He was an absolute genius at social engineering and manipulation. He could manipulate anybody. He could read right through you, right through me. He called me out on all my bullshit, everything, and he had ways of determining if you were lying to him. He would just ask you a simple question. And one thing that he said that stuck with me was that he says, Jimmy, never forget this. He said, people will tell you everything that you will ever need to know about them if you just listen to them, and he could find out anything about you for $20, meaning if you were to steal $20 for him or not give it back or misplace it, then he would know everything that he would ever need to know about you. Doesn't mean that he would stop working with you if you stole from him, but now he knew exactly who you are. So now you thought you were stealing from him, but he was absolutely manipulating you in the ways that he wanted. So he was very cunning at that. It was kind of scary to see him do that. But he had some bad actors in his group. Not all. Some guys were there just to protect him and be there for him, and protect his life. But he required everything out of you. He required everything. And so part of that was internally, watching his back internally. Another part of that, he thought the cartel was after him. Another part of that was he thought the government was after him because of all the information that he had on, I'm not going to name their names, but 3 people, in the, but I don't want this to get blocked or anything. But he had a lot of security concerns. And number one, above me being the CEO or running his company or whatever you want, or negotiating for him, was his life. Nothing came over protecting his life. And one of the reasons why John trusted me above probably even Janice, his own wife, and she even would admit this to me, is because I am the only person that never came up to him, that reached out to him. I'm the only person in his whole life that he reached out to. The Army guys, the guys that were surrounding when I got there, they were kind of friends in the military service stuff, and they were all like connected and had brought each other on and come up to him and, all this. Janice, as a prostitute in Miami, came up to him. Everybody came up to him. And so that was my one big card. I know there's a guy, Alex Foster, saying that he was his writer and his like closest confidant. McAfee wouldn't even talk to him. He was only there for maybe 4 weeks, only had 2 meetings with John McAfee for 5 minutes. John McAfee had me fire him, but now he's saying that he's like his closest confidant and a bestseller of his book. It's pretty ingenious of the guy. It's pretty weaselly too. Whatever. The point is I had to remind McAfee multiple times that, sir, you brought me in here. When he started accusing me, I said, you brought me here. I didn't come into your life and knock on your door. And he'd have to snap out of it because he realized the reasoning there. It wasn't logical to think that I was a traitor or a spy or somebody.
Yeah, because you would have just left at any time.
He called me.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is the most important lesson that you learned from McAfee?
The most important lesson that I ever learned from McAfee is you can't trust really anyone. And the people that you trust the most are the ones that will hurt you the most. Like one time he said, Jimmy, that precious little princess of yours that you're married to? I said, yeah, what about her? You know, because it's always negative. You know, he said, well, he said, you know, even she can betray you. And he goes, here's the problem, Jimmy. Here's your problem. He goes, you lift people up so high on a pedestal that eventually they're so high up here that they fall down on you and crush you. And I thought that was so true in life. Is anytime we get hurt or destroyed in life is our fault. Mm-hmm. It's not their fault. They're just humans. They're greedy little human beings, monkeys, whatever, you know, animals. You, my friend, are at fault. I'm at fault when we get hurt. Because when we really think about it, we almost knew it was going to happen. We almost, but we tricked ourselves into trusting that person, you know? And he said one more thing. He said a lot of things, but he also said, Jimmy, you would be a phenomenal businessman. I said, what do you mean I would be? I said, I want to be the best businessman. He goes, what I teach you here, you'll make millions. What I teach you and you take on the outside, you'll make billions. But you have one issue. You have one problem that you can't change, Jimmy. And that's how he would talk to me. And I say, bullshit. I say, you tell me this problem of mine, and I swear on my life, I will crush it, kill it, throw it in the garbage can. I don't care what it is. That's how greedy I was. That's how I wanted it so bad.
You're ready to go.
He says, I'm sorry, son, you can't change this. And I said, tell me, and I will. He goes, you have a heart. He goes, I'm sorry, you can't change it. And it's true. That's one thing that's hurt me in the past is, you know, when you have a heart in this world, you can only go so far in business. You can only go so far in life because it requires you to have a cold, ice cold heart in certain business transactions, certain things. You can remove yourself emotionally from certain things, but at the end of the day, you're in for a lot of trouble when you have a heart for things. Not saying I'm some choir boy, or not saying I'm like, but you know, like when you have a heart, like you're loyal. You can't imagine that guy betraying you. Yeah. Can't imagine your buddy doing this. You know, you're like, well, I would never, I catch myself sometimes saying, man, but I would never do that. I don't know why they're doing this to me. It's like, I know, but that's just how it is.
Yeah. It's a ruthless fucking game.
It's a ruthless world, brother.
What would be your funniest story that you have with John McAfee? When I had buddies that found out, or, you know, you were coming on the show, one of the areas that we were talking about with McAfee, you know, he's such a cult figure in terms of some of his, like I said, his philosophies and a lot of the situations and everything. They were pretty pumped for this. So, but, you know, what would be kind of one of your funniest stories over that time you spent with him?
God, McAfee was he was hilarious storyteller, a genius at storytelling, phenomenal guy. He had a contagious laugh. He would just laugh from his belly like, you know, and just, but he was crazy too and wild. Like it's pierced right through you. I don't know if it's that funny, but he would come up to me. Like one time I was drinking really hard. I got to where I was drinking and sniffing, you know, snorting speed and stuff just to keep the pace. And he never stopped me from that, from keeping up the work pace. But I was making him millions of dollars, like literally. And he went one day he came up to me in a big party, and we had all the company party there, massive company. And I was sitting there drinking my scotch, his $250 bottle of scotch, you know, just pounding it. Racket. And when I got there, I was like AJ squared away, retired from the SEALs, you know, couldn't imagine drinking with my pistol on. Yeah. Couldn't believe these asshole guys, you know, drinking and smoking weed with their pistols on. It just was so mind blowing. I was like, get me out of here. But now a year later, I'm just like snort, and pow, slamming stuff, you know, partying. And I was at this company party at his mansion where I had my beautiful office in Ocracoke. And he came up to me and he said, Jimmy, are you having a blast, son? And I was like, I'm having a blast, sir. He goes, you're having a great time, aren't you? I said, I am. And he speaks real loud and everybody could hear him. He says, well, I remember when I used to party, when he goes, I remember when I used to party like this and drink like this. And I said, really? I said, when was that? He goes, when I became a success. And I was like, damn. And he was telling me that you ain't nothing, brother. He goes, you ain't done nothing. Like, why are you partying like this? And so he had an awesome way of checking you and embarrassing the hell out of you without really saying much to you. And so I put that scotch down and started getting my act a little bit more together, you know. But one of the funnier things I've seen him do is, one day we went outside and he was like, "Whose car is that, damn it?" And I'd be like, "Sir, it's your 1968 like collector's model Corvette, And he'd be like, "Oh, damn, it's nice." And like he'd say stuff like that, and you're just like, "What the hell?" Like, is he serious? And I remember he said that about his car, and then he just fell down this hill, head over like feet, just boom, 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 and you could hear like something crack, like crack, and he fell down this hill real hard, and a scotch flew out of his hand, a cigarette smushed, and he stood up. He's like, "Who the hell put that there? Who the hell put that there?" And I said, "Who the hell put what there?" I said, "Sir, you're wearing two left shoes." Like two different left shoes. Like he was wearing two left shoes. Yeah. He was always doing something. He couldn't put a DVD in a DVD player, but he created the McAfee antivirus. He's working on computers the size of your house, man, for NASA. Like crazy, major proponent in iMessaging. One of Steve Jobs' good friends. And, just crazy guy. And I remember he was tough as nails though. And he, even though he fell down the hill, he refused to go to the hospital. Just one tough Irish bastard, man.
One of the things, it's so interesting that, you're highlighting all those different characteristics, and he's obviously like such a unique individual, like I said, across the board. It is crazy to think that, the idea that the government, a lot of politicians we're talking about, took it as an opportunity to demonize him as soon as it's going against kind of those core beliefs. And again, it seems like time and time again, a lot of people won't really get to know the individuals behind the stories and, the philosophies and what they talk about. All they get is this kind of bullshit. It's easy for them to be, demonized.
Yeah. He was demonized. And I see a lot of people call him evil now and dark and all this, and the FBI calling that and all this. But, I can only speak for the guy that I personally knew. And yes, he had his demons, but perhaps he was just more upfront about his demons. And other people are more, "I don't have any demons.
The mask.
I'm perfectly fine." It's living behind the mask. He had no mask on. He was an open book. He told you how he felt. And I had a really, really powerful relationship with him. And it was hard when I found out he passed away in prison. And a lot of things changed for me during that time too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking into that, so kind of when the mental breakdown in this situation started, you're kind of mentioning the speed and stuff, and there was other stuff getting tossed around, and it was kind of another opportunity. You're moving really fast, millions of dollars are running in.
Yeah.
And that all kind of came to a head. So can you maybe speak to that moment where the mental health kind of broke loose there, and I guess you started taking steps backward for what we were discussing earlier?
Okay. What was the question?
So, obviously, having tons of success working with McAfee, running the company and everything. And then, but moving really fast, we were talking about the speed and, the partying and whatever it might be.
Yeah.
When did it all kind of come crashing back?
Man. So I was acting pretty crazy at McAfee. I was doing a lot of crazy stuff, but I was making tons and tons of money, and you just start getting blinded. You start getting blinded by everything. You're just blind to a lot of things, because there's too many moving parts, and you're kind of disassociated. I can remember, going on my one weekly date with my wife at the time, and I remember sitting there on my phone the whole time, and she just sit there. And that's pretty much my last memory of us. Mm-hmm. Was at that one dinner date, and she's sitting there like this, looking at me, and I'm like this the whole time. Boy, if you're doing that as a man, it is over. You're done. Yeah. And you don't even know it's coming. Yeah. And that girl is plotting and scheming. And I don't blame her. Therefore she should be. If you've abandoned the relationship, you might be there, but you're not there. And so I abandoned the relationship long before she did. And man, I could see it falling apart, but I just didn't see it. And so one night around 2 a.m, I was up in my beautiful Ocracoke office overlooking the Ocracoke Sound in North Carolina. And I had this amazing cherry wood office. I had this beautiful brass, shine brass. It went from the floor all the way up to this huge tall ceiling. I had this beautiful desk. Mm-hmm. And you got to remember, that's pretty crazy. I went from a mental hospital hanging myself in the SEALs to getting out, and now I'm
Wait, from being in a trench filled with water in Pakistan.
getting bit by dog-sized mosquitoes, dysentery all the time, all this crazy stuff. The Nisour thing, threading that needle, prison for life, all this stuff, to running this massive company, and a very, very successful company with John. And I had these big glass behind me and stuff. And I remember it was probably 2 a.m. in the morning, and I just kind of knew it was over. I just sat down in this office. I thought, man, it's pretty much over. And I don't know I don't know what happened. And it's almost kind of embarrassing to tell. I don't talk about it a lot because it's kind of a really, really like cringy, embarrassing thing in my own life. But I kind of heard this voice. It was just like, get up and leave the place. And so I just got up and I ran out of the house. And that was the coldest night I've ever had in my life, I think. I mean, there was Hell Week and stuff, but I mean, really, like I was like an animal. And I don't know if I was drugged. McAfee slipped something in my drink, scotch, because his second in charge gave me a glass of scotch that night. And I remember taking it. And about an hour later, I lost my mind, bro. Like I've never lost my mind before. I ran out into the woods there in Ocracoke, and I just sunk down in this swamp, and about like this much water, and I just stared like this, like stared wide-eyed, and it was so frigid cold, like a freezer of water, but I refused to move, and I was shaking, then I stopped shaking, which is a really bad sign of hypothermia.
Yeah.
And I just stayed there all night, and they were looking for me, and I heard gun battles and firefights going on. It was so weird. It was the weirdest feeling, like gun battles and stuff. But it sounded like those firefights were on massive speakers. It sounded like it was
like right next to you.
Yeah, and it sounded like they were on actual speakers in like a movie production and going on. And they were trying to trick me. So I knew it wasn't a real gunfight, but it was a real on speakers next to my face. So that's how messed up this was. And I could hear them, yelling my name and laughing and Jimmy, this, and walking all around me like I'm in the jungle. And I could hear the firefights all night. This happened. In the morning, the sun came up. This big pelican was standing next to me, one of those weird, or herring or something.
Yeah.
Like big white one right next to me. And it was so surreal. But then I started coming to my senses, and I realized that, oh my God, like, what am I doing out here?
Mm-hmm.
Oh God. And I had shot my gun in the ground because I thought it was fake, but I shot it, it went off. So I ditched it in the swamp. I got rid of everything. I came back. I was covered in mud, super embarrassed, man. Guys were like, what's up, boss? You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh dude, it's over, man. It's over. And McAfee was sitting there. He goes, my son, what's going on? Like, what the hell would happen? But McAfee had seen it all,
Mm-hmm.
But he was like, oh, man. And he tried to give me these 3 pills that I knew would reverse LSD and type of things. He had told me that these were very powerful pills. They would reverse stuff. So right then and there, I thought maybe he slipped me something. And later, when I went on the run from the FBI, and I was in Thailand, and I started really experimenting with every drug known to mankind with my girl, that LSD was as close as I've had to that.
I was going to say it
experience.
sounded like LSD, the experience, because I've heard similar things in terms of people getting in like swamp water and stuff like that, but not. I mean, obviously,
right?
There's a variance in all
right.
of it,
but like if you didn't know you took LSD and then you took a big hit and then and you're in this situation, I would figure that's what you would do, because I mean, I had those psychotic episodes in the mental hospital. I definitely got messed up from the war at times and did some weird stuff. But this was like, you're running a business one moment and then this happens. So that was pretty much the end for me. I was really mad at McAfee. I didn't know if he had done anything or not, but I was mad at him, and I knew he did something. I knew that he had something to do with that, whether pushing me too hard for work or he did that. Maybe it was a lack of responsibility at the time, but I take full ownership of it. And I bounced. I said, I don't care how much money's involved. I don't care what you have. I don't care if you have all my gold and silver here at the house. I'm out. And I bounced, bro.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because psychedelics in its own weird way is like a whole unexplored avenue right now. Like, I don't know if Marcus Capone, is talking about having him coming on some point next year, but like now that we're exploring it, there's opportunities in terms of what's its benefit
Yeah.
with mental health, but there's also the whole side of it. It's like, if you're unprepared or if you just didn't know you were taking, whatever it might be, it can have extreme negative effects too. So it's that weird,
for me, it's been a bit major negative thing. Like I was holding some drugs for a buddy of mine, right? Later on when I was on the run doing stuff, and he had me hold this package, and I literally, one of the packages within the other stuff that was in there was, he said 56 hits of mushrooms, and it was in a dried sealed log bag.
Mm-hmm.
It was part of the other white stuff, and it was sealed. And I had taken mushrooms from elephants and stuff in Thailand, the same amount for 2 hits for 2 people. And so he said, whatever you do, you can touch anything else in here. Don't touch those. That's 56 hits, man. It doesn't look like much, but it's like that. And I said, yeah. So I go home, I get bored, and I take that 56 hits and I boil it down into tea, and I drink the whole glass of tea. And bro, I've never felt that kind of separation from my body. I felt like I was in hell, and it was the most insane experience I've ever felt in my life. Felt like demons were going to come and rip me out of my skin at any moment, and it lasted for 24 hours. And it was I was paralyzed in my bed, and when I came to, I was in the bathroom, covered in my own urine and everything, and I was like sobbing, dude, just so happy to be back.
Yeah, it's like an ego death type of deal.
It was horrible, and ever since then, I don't think it's a great idea.
No,
some people don't work for, man.
Yeah, and it's so mindset dependent, right? So
it's mindset. When you've been through crazy stuff, I don't see how it can help you, you know?
And in that situation, you're just highlighting, like, you were on the run, like you had so much, if you got baggage there, it's the ultimate therapy in terms of like
baggage.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to hide it. Like who was it? They always say it's like a mirror, right? And it's if you're going to take it, it's going to show you, whether you don't want to see it or not, is going to show you exactly what you're supposed to see.
And I felt like it was God, because I felt like it was God in that I know I took 56 hits, but check it out. Like, there were things that happened to me in that 24 hours, memories that came back, that there's no way I could have remembered that and it be an important instance. For instance, not too long before the 56 hits of mushrooms, I went to go buy a yacht to go on the run with, this yacht from this older gentleman and his wife, and he was having medical issues. I was so nonchalant and non-caring about other people's feelings or anything. I went to buy this yacht in San Diego, and I went and checked out the boat, and the name of the yacht was Lily. And he said, this is, my daughter her name was Lily, and she died, and we named this boat that. And the whole time I was thinking, man, what a stupid name. I gotta erase this name. I gotta paint over it and name it something else. And I totally blew him off. I remember that. And I said, okay, man, thanks a lot. And I didn't listen to his story. I just kind of blew it off. Dude, when I had that 56 hit, when I was laying this, and that entire scene came up, and it was like, you chose to ignore this guy. You chose, and it was like, that was the stuff I was being hit on. And that's why I feel it's so biblical, and God showing me, like, dude,
that wasn't you.
It's not. And guess what didn't come up? The Nisour square didn't come up, but what did come up was absolutely ignoring other people in their pain and misery, saying I was going to erase that name, Lily, and put another name on it. That's crazy, bro.
That's profound. And that's, kind of part of what I was saying too, is it shows you the idea of, and like kind of what McAfee said, is you had the heart. So in that moment, it was very clear. It's like, if you go back today, you would 100% have acknowledged. But it's like, it's showing you, that you're not, those small moments are what adds in. That's what makes people lose their way. And it's showing you, hey.
Yeah. And how else did that come up?
Yeah.
Like, that's something I would have never, ever thought of on my own. Nothing.
Mm-hmm. So it's such an interesting thing, because I think especially over the next couple, 5, 10, 15 years, we're going to explore it further and further. And things like DMT and stuff where they say there is that connection. But again, it's so powerful that it's like, you know, I've had buddies that have taken it as well, and it's like does not do well with them. So it's an interesting thing, but I agree. I think, and, you know, religiously, it's a lot of different religions that have been tied in with psychedelics in terms of it's an opportunity to speak to a higher power, whether that's, you know, looking into yourself or a direct communication pipeline where they say they get to speak to somebody, you know. I don't know. I always find the whole concept fascinating, and it's interesting to see as well, you know, that type of conversation. Looking back, it's like, man, a small moment like that obviously had such a profound impact. Yeah. So let's jump. So you're stepping away from McAfee. You've kind of highlighted this a little bit as we've been conversating, but obviously at some point you start getting targeted by the FBI as well, when they had also kind of targeted McAfee at the time.
Yeah. So I hear that John McAfee is arrested and thrown in a Spanish prison. And I just know, bro, I mean, think about the psychology. I've already had a terrible interaction with the FBI over the last 15 years or 12 years, maybe. I can't remember. But with them sending letters, they're going to destroy my career, all this stuff, just to discredit me to go testify in the trial, which, by the way, I testified as a SEAL or as an honorably retired SEAL, which totally destroyed their whole attempt to destroy me. Anyways, that's a side note. Well, I can imagine they were still angry. Right? This is not to take the responsibility off of what happened with McAfee, with the crypto and the touting and the insider trading. But think about it. 2 freaking major politically driven interactions with the FBI. And I'm at the center of them. This one with McAfee, charged with the same things. Anyways, having known what I've been through here with the FBI, and then knowing the FBI just arrested McAfee and threw him in a Spanish prison, and then having the FBI call my cell phone and want to speak to me, bro, I was like, I'm out of here, dude.
Yeah.
I would rather die than go through what I had to go through with the FBI. What I had to deal with, I don't wish on any person, man. People just don't know. And so I was like, c'est la vie. I'm out of here. Buy a yacht, do this, sell around. And so I started selling around. In Spain, I didn't buy yacht, but I went to Spain and sold around in Ibiza, all over Muay Thai in Thailand.
The hard fucking place to be doing Muay Thai too.
Bro, my Muay Thai instructor, he has cuts all over his face. And he's like, bah, bah, bah. And I'm like, oh, geez, what? And, you know, kick, you know, slap, kick, across the face. Dude, it's over. And I asked my instructor, I was like, dude, how many fights do you have, man? And he was like, 300.
Yeah.
And it's like, what was that, 1 a week? What's going on here? I mean, they're fighting.
Fight,
They're fighting for chickens, bro.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, people think they're hard going to the UFC. Dude, these guys are like next level. Cuts all over his face. Looked like just, dude, it's like a hamburger all sewed up. And I mean, he was fast, lightning fast. And I was too big. I was too slow, too big, but it was a hell of a workout, hell of a good time. And I needed it to focus in. And it was painful, hard, difficult. I loved it. Get my smoothie afterwards.
I hear the stories too. You get there and they're like, you got to run. Like everyone's running.
You're running all the time, dude. You're running all the time. It's to harden up your shins.
Yeah.
And so then I do mercenary stuff in Colombia, El Salvador, Nicaragua, all around. I'm all around the place, but I'm running from myself. I'm running from God. I'm running from the law. And you can run from the law for a while. You're going to get caught. You can run from yourself your whole life, and you may not get caught. It'll catch up to you, but you can't run from God because He's in every dark corner. And like I said, it's not about going to church. It's not about oh, you being righteous and flushing all your stuff down the toilet. That comes after you feel the love. That comes after the greatest high of this life, even more high than what I've experienced after battles in any drug high. And I've had a lot of drug highs. And there's no high that I felt after God met me. But I had to go on the run first. You know?
What was that situation? What was that situation like when you were on the run, in terms of kind of your mindset and everything as well? Did it feel kind of like the walls closing in, or were you always like, what was your kind of next steps in terms of what you were looking at there?
Yeah, man. Yeah. I would be selling, around Ibiza, in all Mallorca, everywhere. And I would feel like I was in solitary confinement
Mhm.
because you're physically free, but you're mentally and spiritually bound in chains. So you're not physically free. You may be like moving around and seeing things, and wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful water, beautiful people, Spain, all these Thailand, all these places. But you're just a slave, man. You're trapped because they got you. And at any moment going through customs, you could be arrested any moment. And if you're arrested in Thailand, you're going to be sitting in a Thailand, a terrible place for a long time before they transfer you. You're always thinking about this. So you're never getting a good night's sleep. You're always disheveled. You're always thinking about worst case scenarios, all this stuff. And so, man, it was hard to be on the run from yourself, from the law, from God. It's a terrible road, man.
Mhm.
And because it's coming.
Yeah.
And you just don't know how it's going to happen. You don't know if you turn yourself in, or you don't, or you just come home and just roll the dice. And so eventually, man, I came home.
Mhm.
I was missing my mom. I'm a mama's boy.
I was gonna say coffee with your mom. I know that was
Yeah.
stuff term.
Yeah. I wanted to get coffee with my mom and to kind of tell her that what's going to happen. I got my visa to Bali and my tickets and everything. And I remember taking my mom out for coffee, and I just wanted to tell her, like, bye. I just wanted to tell her, Mom, I'm sorry. Like, I never thought of my life ending like this. I thought I was going to be a master chief in the SEALs and do these great things and always stay part of the military. But life comes sometimes and just dumps you, man. Like Count of Monte Cristo, my favorite speech in Count of Monte Cristo. He says, life is a storm, my friend. You will bask in the sunlight one moment, be shattered upon the rocks the next. But it is what you do when that storm comes that makes you a man. You must shout into that storm as you did in Rome. Do your worst, for I will do mine, and the fates will know you, as Edmond Dantes. And that's my life. Do your worst, for I will do mine. But sometimes that storm feels like it's too much. It's overwhelming. And so I was coming home to say bye to my mom and go to Bali for the rest of my life. But honestly, man, I was hoping that there would be some kind of intervention.
I was gonna ask, like, so even that time when you were operating as a mercenary, some of the situations you were at as well. It's funny when I had Danny on too, because we talked about like what is
Daniel go dirty. I was with dirty.
Yeah, we were talking about like what is a mercenary, and he's like, commonly, most of the time, like in the movies, they love to frame it as like, the shady guy with the death wish, like sitting in the corner smoking a cigarette, whatever. And he's like, that often isn't. But when you were operating down there, I mean, what was the feeling, operating as a mercenary at that time when, you have all this other stuff going on too?
Well, whether you're in Dam Neck, SEAL Team 6 or Delta or just a regular SEAL like I was, or Green Beret, whatever the case, you're covered and protected.
Yeah.
You got 9 layers of protection above you, looking at you, watching you, drones,
AC-130,
you're handed everything like a cake, and like you're swaddled and taken care of. Dude, as a mercenary, this ain't Blackwater. That's just contracting. That's a defensive contracting position with Department of State. Mercenary, you're on your freaking own. Like, as in, you might go to a dungeon for the rest of your life, like Daniel almost did, man. Daniel's the man, bro. Dirty's the man. And you get his book, guys. We're
right there. Yeah.
Mercenary, Daniel Corbett, man. That's my man right there. I went on a couple little rendigs with him. He's a great guy. And you might serve some time in a dungeon prison. You may never see the light of the day. Like, and nobody's gonna claim you. America's not gonna claim you. And so doing that stuff was high risk with little reward. Even if it's $400K cash, like, it's little reward, because you're in a very offensive posture, whether it's kidnapping a guy for another government. I'm not saying kidnapping a good person, like a little girl or something. I'm talking about kidnapping a bad player, who's exiled himself, or serving a guy some ice cream. You know what I'm saying? like forever, lights out, which is easier than kidnapping. But whether those two, and I'm not going to go into them too much, but whether those things are very, very dangerous, high risk things, and you're in another country that may not know you're there, and if they do, they can easily sideswipe you as well. So it's very risky stuff. A lot of planning, that is the absolute most nerve-wracking stuff that I've done, and so the SEALs didn't hold a candle to, because the SEALs, you're protected. The Marines, you're protected. Blackwater, you're protected. You got armored cars. You got 30 pipe-hitting monkeys with sawed-off shotguns and AKs and PKMs and AK-47s. You know what I'm saying? Like, but mercenary, it's you, 2 other guys, sitting there and with a plan, and you're gonna make a lot of money, but you gotta go do some balls-y stuff. You gotta do the big boy stuff, you know. You know,
relying on intel. That's
relying on stuff, and getting caught is not an option. Getting caught as a mercenary is not an option. It's just it's not even in your. It's like the last ditch plan is to off yourself. Like you're not getting caught.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the plausible denial.
Yeah, because you're not getting out. You're not getting off of that one.
Yeah. So let's jump into when the FBI arrest, because I do really want to get to the conversation around that you ended up having with God. The story is like unbelievable, but how did the arrest kind of happen when they finally closed in?
Yeah, man. So I have coffee with my mom. I all of a sudden I'm like, dude, mom, somebody must be praying for me, you know? And she goes, why? And I said, well, I just had this overwhelming peace come over me, like this warm sensation. I'm thinking, what did I take? Did I take Xanax? But I'm used to everything now. Everything that I take doesn't even have effect. That's when you know you're an addict and messed up. Well, I hadn't taken anything substantial to have that feeling. And so it felt like morphine hit me. I was like, wow, everything's going to be okay, Mom. Somebody must be praying for me. And right at that moment, I stood up. It was like God preparing me, dude, for the onslaught. And I walked with my mom. I was going right up to her car. And right when I was walking up to the car, this black Suburbans, like a couple of them, several of them, just almost ran over my toes. That's how close. And the guy he cracked the door open with a pistol. I got video of it. I posted it. And it was my mom whipped out that camera. She's like, you got the tater. You got the tater. So I'm like, Mom, be quiet. Stop saying the tater. I don't even know what that means. You know, it's like confusing me. And he's pointing the gun at me, his finger on the trigger. And all I could do is like push my mom to the side and get in front of her and just raise my hands real slow and be calm as cute. I was real calm. And I was pretty relieved, because I was like, thank God, man. In this freaking nightmare. I'm tired of this. Like, I'm tired of it, dude. Because it's not like you're going to Bali to have fun. You're going to Bali. You could be surfing, doing whatever, and you're just miserable.
Yeah, you can never go back type of deal.
Because your life is just ruined. Yeah. Your life is ruined. And they know it. The FBI know it. They're going to get you anyway. There's no such thing as non-extraditionary. They laugh at that.
Yeah.
It's stupid. They just do a deal with the government. But they were tracking me the whole time. They knew I was going to Bali. They knew where I kept getting pulled out of the airport in Colombia, Medellin. Everywhere I went, they pulled me out. And I'm like, dude, what the heck, man? And every time they take my bags in the back, and I didn't know this, but they were filming everything, photographing it, sending it to the FBI, showing me exactly what I had, where I was going, doing. I was getting tracked, Interpol, and they could arrest me anytime.
Yeah.
So I thought it was nice of them to allow me to come back home on my own. But that's probably why they did it. They were like, okay, he's coming back home.
Easy to get you.
Instead of like trying to work a deal with the government. So I was arrested and thrown in FMC, Fort Worth the feds. And it's basically where it's not really a level. It's where all the mental patients go and all the weirdos go. And the Tiger King was serving time there.
That was...
it was crazy, bro.
Like, dude, yeah.
And I was watching the Tiger King like incessantly while I was on the run. And so now I'm in the pod next to the Tiger King. And I'm like, dang, dog, life comes at you fast, homie. and then I got transferred out of FMC to I won my case. I won the case to go on house arrest. And that was a miracle. Paid my lawyer $50,000, basically tell me I'm going to prison for 15 years, but I had to go on house arrest, pre-trial confinement. It's a weird situation. So the Texas judge, though, when they're about to transfer me, the Texas judge was about to transfer me upstate New York. in the feds, to keep me in the feds while John McAfee came back so we could stand trial together. And while John McAfee's in prison in Spain fighting his case, I'm waiting for him. Well, they wanted to transfer me upstate to the Southern Manhattan District, the same ones that went off after Wolf of Wall Street, these guys. It's a big case. McAfee.
Yeah, they don't play games.
It ain't about me, but it's about McAfee.
Yeah.
So they charged me with 8 felonies, money, wire fraud, conspiracy, racketing, all this crazy stuff, insider trading. And they, I went to in front of the Texas judge. He's like, wait a second. He's like, y'all want to do what? Transfer this Navy SEAL upstate? And they're like, oh my God. You know, the silly. He's like, we don't do that to our veterans this side of the Mason-Dixie. And I was like, oh, thank you, God. I was like, God bless you, Texas judge. He's like, shut up, boy. You know, and they're like, okay. And he's like, and so they let me go on house arrest with this big ankle bracelet, but it was super confinement. It was like super controlled, super $5 million promissory bond, $1 million bond. And went and stayed with my mom and my dad at their house. And so, man, that's where my life was turned upside down. I didn't care about nothing. I don't want to live anymore. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to live anymore, you know?
Yeah, everything had circled back too, and it's just been compounding.
Yeah.
I guess all that starts kind of saying it again, kind of the walls close in, you're sitting in that situation, you're on house arrest and everything's looking challenging. You have this moment where you get to speak with 2 individuals who at first seem sketchy as hell. They seem like FBI guys, but something pretty profound comes out of this. So can you maybe speak to that conversation?
Yeah, man. Yeah. So one night on house arrest, man, I've just lost my mind. I'm just like, and I go back to what my mom said. She always said, cry out to Jesus in war. Here I am on house arrest facing 15 years. There is no freaking way out of this. I mean, my lawyer said I could fight it. I don't have to fight it, whatever. I'm going to prison for 12 to 15 because of the amount of money involved in that. I was a leader. When you're in a leadership position of the company, they just smash you. And of course, they want to destroy you.
It's like a RICO.
And so that night, man, I just cried. I remember 3 a.m, I'm sweating in my pillow. I'm all anxious. And I'm like, God, I want to die. And I just remember crying out. I said, Jesus, if you're real. I said, Jesus, if you're real, I'm at my ends, and show up in my life if you're real. I'm done. I'll do whatever you want. Do whatever. And I'm not asking to get out of prison. That's a really important part of this. I'm not asking to get out of prison. You know, if you're not low enough, if you're still asking to get out of prison or your situation, you're just not low. When you're real low, you're just like, I don't care no more. Do what you got to do. You know, I'm that low. And so that was that low. And the very next day, first, my lawyer called me and said, McAfee was found dead in his prison. And that was a shock. That was a huge shock. I was like, what? What do you mean he's dead in his prison? I didn't know what that meant for my case. And then these guys called me and said, do you want to go to Operation Restore Warrior? I said, well, I'm on house arrest. I can't. And they said, well, we don't judge. So I asked the Texas judge if I could go, and they allowed me to go for 3 days because I was in my veteran status. So I go to this nonprofit, super restricted, and these 2 guys, and I feel weird when I get there. I'm not gonna lie. I felt real strange. McAfee's dead. That day, I'm like, I show up to this place.
Yeah.
It's just weird. I called out to Jesus. Now I'm at this place. You know, there's something that goes in between that, but whatever. So I'm at this place, and these 2 guys, they say, can we pray with you, Jimmy? I said, man, I guess, yeah. And so they ask, they say, Jimmy, tell us your story. And these guys look like FBI agents. And I'm thinking, dude, this is a setup. Mm-hmm. They've let me go off house arrest for 3 days to tell more, you know? And so I'm like, guys, I'm sorry, but you guys look like cops, and I'm not speaking to you. I'm sorry. And they're like, Jimmy, we're not cops. This is what we do here. We just want you to tell us your story. And so I start telling them the watered down version, and I start skipping over pieces like the McAfee part because it's embarrassing, the whole psychosis thing, the PTSD. And I skip over that part. And one of them's name is Daniel. And this is the most important part of my story of my whole life, above anything I've ever done. And this guy, Daniel, that's praying for me says, Jimmy, you just skipped over a part of your life. And I said, not in. And he goes, and he looked me dead in my eyes. He said, yes, you did. And I said, no, I didn't. And he goes, was that at the Love Boat, the Love Shack? That's what he said. He goes, was that at the Love Boat? And I go, what'd you say? And awkward as shit.
Yeah.
And he goes, I said, what'd you say? Because he said a word that I remember, a nickname that I had given that house in McAfee. He goes, was that at the Love Shack? He didn't call it the Love Boat. It was done after the Love Boat, this mansion, but I called it the Love Shack, the nickname. This is how detailed this is. And I said, bro, I don't know who you are, and I don't know what kind of game you're playing with me, and I don't know how you know that about the house that I was in, but I'm out of here. And I stood up, because if a psychic, if psychics were real and they told you the real deal about your life, a nickname you called a house at a really dark time in your life, then you out of there. You ain't paying them money.
Yeah, you're like,
you ain't saying, tell me more. You're like, you know. And so I was out. I was like, see ya, homie. And on my ankle bracelet. And they said, no, Jimmy, don't go anywhere. This is what we do here. I said, what do you mean this is what we do here? Yeah. I said, what do you do here? They said, we asked Jesus to come in and tell us about you. And that's how we get to you. That's how we, and I said, okay. I get it. If you know so much about me, I'm not going to tell you one more thing. If you know about me, why should I have to tell you anything? I said, if you know so much about my life, then tell me more. I said, tell me more. And he says, okay, you were at this place called the Love Shack or the Love Boat, something like that. He said the Love Shack. And I said, and so what? You're lucky. And he said, well, he says, when you walk through the door, you walk through a screen door. And then as you're walking in off the right, there's a massive hot tub. And then you go up some 3 steps and you go up to another door. And I'm like, and I mean, I knew this place like the back of my hand. I knew everything about this place. And I really loved this place. I talked about the Ocracoke office. Mm-hmm. And I said, tell me more. I said, tell me more. And he said, you walk in and there's a fake armory where you keep guns and a metal door and then a cherry wood door that covers it. I said, and he goes, there's an elevator, a freaking elevator in this house. And a cherry door covers it. I said, I started getting frustrated and I started thinking maybe it's a reality show or maybe I'm going into psychosis again, something weird.
Yes.
And I said, bro, okay, if you know so much, then tell me more about this place. He says, and he looked at this other guy and the other guy said, okay. And Daniel goes, you go up these stairs and there's these rooms and they all have grid coordinates above them. Latin longs. And I said, grid coordinates. He goes, okay, grid coordinates. And he said that each one has a name, Tahiti, Colombia, Thailand, because they all had names.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact names, but Tahiti was mine. And they had names on the second floor. It was done after the Love Boat. It was a beautiful mansion. It looked like a ship. And I said, and he's like, you go up to the 3rd floor and there's a massive ship steering wheel on the wall. He goes, he just kind of grabbed it. He's like a massive ship. And when he did that, bro, my hair just stood up and I was like, because there was a massive ship steering wheel. And I said, bro, okay, that's not enough, man. And I started getting angry. I started saying, I was shaking mad, bro. I was like, that's not enough, bro. I was like, tell me more. And I was standing up in their face. I said, tell me more then. And he said, okay. He said, there's boats that come up to the house on a canal from the ocean, from the sound. He called it a sound, and it was a sound. It wasn't an ocean. I said, tell me more. I yelled at him, dude. I said, tell me more if you know so much. And he said, okay. He said, there was a path that you used to walk down behind the house. And when he said that, bro, I just fell back in my seat, bro, like this. And I just stared at him and I started crying, bro, like I'd never cried before because there was a path behind the house I would cry out to Jesus from. And in my darkest time, man, I was lonely after all the trauma in my life, and I would cry out to God on that path. And it was that moment where I realized that Jesus was with me in the darkest, most terrible places of my life. He was always there. After I cried out to him, he was there. And he was God showing me that he was with me on that path. And dude, that was 5 years ago from that time I was talking to him at McAfee's, maybe 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And how would these two guys know about a path that I used to walk down and the significance of that path?
Yeah, I was going to say what it meant to you.
Bro, and I bawled like a baby. And I'm telling you, I got up from that seat Like I dropped 2 sea bags of bricks off that I was carrying the rest of my life. And bro, I was a completely 100% changed man. And I don't know if today it was because God actually touched me physically, or it was that's how powerful your mindset set is, that it was a perspective change. Because dude, there's nothing more real that has ever happened in my life than that moment. And there's been trials and tribulations after that, painful moments, but nothing like that. And because that happened, I later asked that guy, I said, Daniel, I said, what was going through your head? How did you do that, man? Because I was fascinated.
Just about to ask that.
Yeah. And he says, I don't know, Jimmy. He goes, but all I know is Jesus told me to keep answering you until you believed. So if there's anybody out there listening to this right now, this is God answering you until you believe. And it may not be on this podcast. It may not be a year from now, but he will keep answering you until you believe. He's that persistent. His love is that great. And that's exactly what happened to me. There is nothing that I can gain from coming on here and telling somebody that crazy story. There's nothing I can gain from that if you think about it, because there's a lot of other better ways to make money and stuff. So I came on here to tell you that because it's a promise I made. I told God before that, I said, if you show up in my life, I'll tell one person or 1,000,000 the rest of my life. And that's what I do, bro. That's what I do.
Well, Jimmy, man, there's no better way to end it. Like I said, I wanted to bring it all the way to the end there because, like I said, it's profound in so many ways. And I think exactly what you just said there, whether it's this podcast, whether it's, someone stepping outside and having a similar experience, seeing a sign, whatever it might be, just being open to that opportunity to change and taking that next step forward, even through the darkest times, you can still find that light.
Yeah, man. There's hope out there, just keep moving forward and know that there's a real God. His name is Jesus, and he's with you no matter what, walking with you in your darkest, most terrible times, even in your addiction, even in your porn addiction, even in your worst case scenarios. I was thinking about that today. He's with you, and he's trying to walk you out of it, but you got to allow him to walk you out of it. You got to surrender and say, okay, I'm done. I'm done asking you to get me out of this situation. I'm just asking you to come into my life and have a real relationship.
Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, man. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that you're here, even through everything.
Thank you, man.
Made it through. And yeah, it's an honor to have you on. If you want to let people know social media, like where to find you, we'll have a link below. But
brother, I got you. I got all y'all covered down. You just come on over to Mighty Warrior 24 because I believe you're a mighty warrior. And until you realize that, things won't change. But come on over to my social media. I will answer you if you direct message me. All you got to do is direct message me on IG, Instagram. Come see what I'm all about. Come see what we're doing. I've got several major things going on right now that you can actually be a part of. Would love for you to come and direct message me.
Yeah, we're coming close to the new year here, man. 2025 is going to be a big one. And like I said, excited to see what you continue to do, brother.
Thank you, man. Thank you, bro.